in fairness to me, this was a gas station connected to a McDonald's, so it was classy. When you propose at McDonald's, the expectation for the first anniversary is not very high. The expectation for the wedding is not very high. Don't create false expectations by doing something too much for your engagement. Welcome to Fitz and Whit, the show hosted by two men with better beards than Santa, or at least that's what I'm hearing, Whit. We are brought to you by DraftKings. The crown is yours. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. We now have over 7,000 subscribers, Andrew.
Whoa.
We're really doing it. We're really doing it. Leave us a rating or review wherever you get your podcasts. And yes, we are always happy to read about whose beard you like better. Long and shaggy, short, maintained, white like Santa. Please let us know.
Coming up on the show, we're going to talk about Josh Allen's insane week, which included him having a full Superman moment on Sunday Night Football. Also, he might have gotten engaged.
That's
pretty cool.
What a guy.
What a dude. Fitz is going to tell a Harvard story. Shocking, I know. And we're also going to give you our starting 11 if we were going to get in a bar fight made up of former teammates that we've had in the NFL. But first, let's get back to KC, Fitz. We had a good time in Kansas City, a little Black Friday football. Kansas City Chiefs ended up on top, 19-17. I don't know how impressed we walked away with the game, but Fitz, the ending of that game, I was really confused. I know this. We were standing on the sideline. I heard a whistle. I thought that meant stop the play. Then you explained to me in those situations, sometimes it's different.
So I think there's two different things we want to talk about here. One is the referee's involvement in it. We were confused on if there was a whistle or not. They kind of let the play out. Obviously, it was a fumble, and the Chiefs recovered it. But we were taught when we were kids, what do you do when you hear the whistle?
Stop on the whistle, baby.
Right? That's you play to the whistle, then you stop. So
well, as an offensive lineman, Fitz, I was taught to play through the whistle.
Oh, through the whistle.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So I didn't like that one because there was a whistle, we thought, on the field. And so that whole, conference and deciding, that they were going to go ahead and let it go, whatever. I didn't love that. But the part I want to talk about, which I think was just crazy, is the Raiders' involvement in this, aside from the officials, of what happened there. So they spiked the ball on, I think it was 2nd and 6. And this happens sometimes in practice. And I think this is what happened to them there. They were so satisfied with executing the spike and the play that had happened before.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, Aiden O'Connell sees the play clock going down to 15 seconds. 15 seconds is the magic number where they can no longer communicate in your headset. And so you see it get to 15. You see panic on his face, 14-13. He decides just to call 4 verticals, which is actually really smart. He was going to take the snap and throw it out of bounds because they didn't really need yardage, and they certainly couldn't waste catching something in bounds because the game would have been over. And they're in a rush. So he's clapping, telling everybody to hurry up to get to the ball. Well, I love that the center came out and said, look, it was my bad. It can't happen. But he couldn't have done anything. He hustles to the ball, and the right guard taps his butt. Like, what does it mean when you get your butt tapped as a center? It means I'm snapping the damn ball. So there was nothing he could really do. He didn't know what else was going on in the situation. The right guard and Aiden O'Connell could have done a better job of communicating what he wanted done, but the receivers weren't set, which ends up what the penalty was. Aiden O'Connell's looking out. He gets hit with the ball. But this was an error with the coaching staff of the Raiders for sure. And it's not really being talked about because we want to talk about the refs and how they love the Chiefs and they're all for the Chiefs. But there was a lot of different blame to be passed around during the end of that football game.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And again, the Chiefs pull out one of these wins that we've continued to see all year, Fitz. I mean, you look at it, I think of the season, it started with Likely's toenail basically being out of bounds, or the Ravens get a win on Sunday Night Football possibly. I mean, the questionable penalty on our Cincinnati Bengals, we know how that one ended. You think about the Bucs with their opportunity to go for 2, the blocked field goal against the Broncos, making a field goal as time expires for the Panthers, and now this. I mean, yes, they have a great record, but I'm not sure where I'm at right now with, is this last year when we're criticizing like, oh man, they don't look as good as we expect them to look, or are they not that good this year, but they're just good enough to win right now?
You better be careful because Chiefs fans will come after you. They've been coming after me on Twitter because I basically said that. I mean, walking off that field after the win and even during the game, we could feel it. There's some bad vibes on that sideline. There are some bad vibes within that team right now. And those things are hard to get rid of. I mean, there's an ominous feeling, even though this team is now 11-1. And I just think this team is different. And the biggest reason why is their defense is not nearly as dominant as they were last year. And I don't think they're just going to be able to flip the switch. I think losing Watson made them even more thin on the back end. They have missed L'Jarius Sneed this year, but they've been really bad on third down and getting off the field the last 5 weeks. They're having a hard time getting to the passer when they just rush 4. So everybody thinks just like last year, they're going to flip this magical switch. And maybe they're that good and they will, but I just think they're going to run into some problems with some of these dynamic offenses in the AFC, and they're going to fall behind in a game. And when you fall behind in the game, you got to pass a little bit more and not lean on the run. What do you think about their tackle play, Whit? Do you think their tackles are going to be able to hold up when they have to do that?
Well, they need DJ Humphries to be healthy, and that's a big question. I mean, the guy tore his ACL just a year ago. I think that's a huge factor for them because at least the kind of player he is and has been, if he can get back to that form, that'll be a big part for them. I think they won't have to help so much on that side, and they can help on the other with Juwan Taylor. But also, man, here's the other thing is I will say this. Last year, they only averaged just over 19 points in the last 6 games of the season. And we were questioning, like, was this offense going to be good enough to win in the playoffs? And then out of nowhere, what do? All 4 games in the playoffs, they average almost 25 points a game, and they go win a Super Bowl. So we have seen them, like I always used to say in high school, you never believe your high school coach when you used to say, hey, guys, you can't just flip a switch. Bullshit, because I've watched a lot of great players flip switches for a long time.
Yeah.
And Mahomes is one of those guys that it feels like he gets a little bored in the regular season, but when he is ready to go and it's for everything, he flips the switch. Him and Kelsey get their relationship rolling, and they win games. And so I'm questioning this year because I do think this defense isn't as good, just like you said. But I don't know. There's some tough teams in the AFC this year. Now, I think there's Ravens teams. I've said this Buffalo Bills team, they get a lead on them. They're good enough, both those teams, to come away with a win. But right now, as it stands, they're going to have to go do that in Kansas City, which always plays in the Chiefs' favor because that is a pretty special place to play.
It is. And I'm looking forward to the Chiefs-Chargers game to see what goes on there this weekend. But another funny thing about Black Friday that was great, and I'm really mad at you, I'm mad at you for a lot of reasons. But
I didn't even do nothing.
We get a text at halftime from Jason Kelsey, our buddy.
Okay, I know this one.
And he was just excited about the Beanie Bros. We were both wearing beanies,
Bros.
And I was excited about mine. It said Black Friday football. You were looking good in yours. But I'm furious because why wouldn't you tell me how dumb I looked with that stupid ball on the top of my beanie? Like, I looked so
great.
dumb. No, I saw the picture and I was like, Kelsey's just making fun of me. Like, this thing looks ridiculous.
That was great. My favorite part was you ripping the ball off as soon as we got in for halftime.
Right when I saw the photo.
You saw the photo. You're like, this ball's gone. I'm out on wearing the ball on top of my head. You know what? Honestly, I didn't think anything about it until he sent the photo. And I really, 2 things I noticed were, one, you look ridiculous with that ball on top of your head. The second thing I noticed that I kind of wanted to ask you about, do you notice in his picture, I'm not sure if this is from his house, we got a lot of wires hanging here, Fitz.
Oh, my God. That was the second thing I noticed.
Him, but we were in the middle of the show, and I was like, I wanted to ask, hey, bro, do we have a little TV audio? Like, do you have some pride about the setup here? Because I'm confused. The cord's hanging underneath the TV.
And there was a lot of them. It wasn't just like the power cord. It's like the Sonos cords. And let's assume that that's maybe not his setup and he was somewhere else watching the game. Either way, like, you can't have that setup, Jason. You can't have a family member have that setup. You've got a 9-figure podcast and you had a very good NFL career. You shouldn't be the one that's setting up your TV or setting up your Sonos and leaving the wires hanging in between them so you can see them. Not a good look. Much like my beanie, not a good look. All right. The game tonight, Buffalo Bills, baby. Isn't it amazing?
I know you're excited.
I mean, teams that can play in weather and teams that can't. And we saw an example of both of those teams tonight. They absolutely dominated from the beginning of the game. Unfortunately, Christian McCaffrey goes down. We hope that he's okay. Didn't look great. But the Bills, I mean, Josh Allen built for that weather. Cook somehow looked faster than everybody else on the field. The Niners couldn't catch the ball. The Bills couldn't drop a ball. The Niners couldn't get their footing. The Bills were acting like it was perfect weather outside. For everybody that wants to talk about, I can't believe the Bills are building a new stadium and there's not a dome. Well, guess what? That's why.
That's why. Yeah, that's why.
That's why.
Hey, look,
watch that game.
You know
That's why.
I love the duo to the house, and then the next drive they get it. I'm like, oh no, they're about to run it again, and he got another huge gain. It's like, hey, listen, it's very clear we're going to make the 49ers tackle. That's what we're going to do in this weather. But it kind of made me think about even on Thanksgiving Day, the Dolphins in Green Bay. It's like you take these teams, whether it be in California or Florida. And I'm sorry, you show up in those conditions, you can have all the speeches you want all week. You can put all the Vaseline you want on your arms. You got to love some football, and you got to have a little bit of experience of playing in that kind of weather to play well. I think it is a huge advantage. And it's also why, to me, Buffalo's right there on their heels. If the Chiefs slip up and those playoffs end up going through Buffalo, man, that's going to be a really tough place for people to go and win.
Yeah, although Kansas City did do it last year, but it's going to be a tough place to go in and win. And it also made me think and had me thinking, gosh, the Dolphins should move to the NFC because, I mean,
they do that.
If they don't have home field advantage, I mean, and they may not make the playoffs this year, probably, but you think about all the outdoor teams and conditions that are better than them. I mean, they're going to have to win games in that type of weather. And at this point, it just looks like they're not built for that, Andrew. They are not built for that. But I think one of the other amazing things, just looking at the stats of Josh Allen, and right when that temperature starts to drop in December and January, we haven't really seen a quarterback like him. And, there's some ridiculous stats since 2020 with his record, with the amount of touchdowns, but he's dang near unbeatable in those conditions. And it's been really fun to watch. But that play,
I was about to say, you think he's unbeatable. What about when he's throwing passes and then catching laterals from his own passes and then going full Superman over the pylon? I mean, dude, this guy is crazy rare. But I also thought, too, as you always say this about their culture, the atmosphere that Buffalo is, just the feel that those guys have as a team. Man, you want to talk about not only were they winning, but the fun, the smiles, the energy you saw them have from the jump of that game. Every time a play went good, man, they have a special vibe right now. And you can tell that Josh Allen is the epitome of it. The duty is the way he plays the game. He has an infectious energy about him, like he's a little kid out there playing in the backyard. They are really fun to watch.
Yeah, and don't mistake that play as like a Ben Johnson special where they dialed that thing up. Josh throws a really bad ball to Amari, who makes an amazing one-handed catch. It was going to go for no gain, and Josh was probably running over there to make sure he didn't fumble, and then all of a sudden puts his arms up. Amari pitches it to him. He breaks the tackle and dives in the end zone. Like I love what Collinsworth said because my kids were doing the same thing. Once big plays happen in a game, they immediately go to their phones to check their fantasy team. And they scored it as a passing touchdown and a receiving touchdown for Josh on the same play. So he ended up with 0 receptions for 7 yards receiving and a receiving touchdown, which there's not a better Josh Allen stat line than that. And then he added the rushing touchdown, of course. And then, the engagement. Over all of this,
come on,
he's winning
brother.
on the field. He's winning off the field. I mean, congrats to Josh on the engagement too. Good stuff from him. I actually have a funny engagement story, and I don't think I've ever told you this. Whit.
Wait,
have you ever heard my engagement story with Liza?
Is this to Liza? Okay,
this is to Liza. Okay. I am a snot-nosed rookie, can't grow a beard yet with the St. Louis Rams. We have a joint bank account.
Is this before or after you ended the Greatest Show on Turf?
This is actually right before I ended the Greatest Show on Turf.
Okay.
And we went to the Gap, she got a winter coat. It was getting cold. It was November. And the people at the Gap thought they double charged us for the coat. And so I had just bought the engagement ring that day. So I was storing it in my Nissan Pathfinder. And the person said, I think I double charged him. So sorry. And back then it's like we couldn't do everything on our phones. So we were driving back and she said, I'll just check it on the computer when we get home to see if the charge went through twice. Well, I just bought an expensive engagement ring and I didn't want her to see that. I wanted it to be a surprise. So from the Gap to home, I had to determine like where I was going to propose. So I'm like, hey, do you want to grab some food and sit by the lake? And she's like, no, it's freezing. Like, why would I want to do that? It's like, okay, well, do you want to go to Ruth's Chris and get a steak? No, like, I don't want to have a sit down dinner right now. We're kind of like getting in a little bit of an argument. I'm like, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to go to McDonald's? Yes, let's just go to McDonald's. Let's have a meal and get home. So we go to McDonald's. I think she gets now she always gets the 2 cheeseburger meal. And then dips fries and like sweet and sour sauce and sometimes a side of nuggies for both of us. And so she's there like, chicken nuggets, cheeseburger, there's stuff all over her fingers. And I'm like, oh my God. Now,
I gotta do it.
In fairness to me, this was a gas station connected to a McDonald's. So it was classy.
Yeah.
Super classy.
Clearly.
I pull out the ring in the middle of McDonald's and propose to her. Thank God she says yes. And then that next week, I ended the greatest show on turf and had to play for the Rams. But that was it. That's how you get engaged at McDonald's. And guess what? She said yes, and she loved it, and she loves the story. So
that's right. You created a memory. That's the whole point. Right?
See, not only did I create a memory, though, this is where people go wrong. I also created expectations. You know how many? None. The bar was this low. When you propose at McDonald's, the expectation for the first anniversary is not very high. The expectation for the wedding is not very high. Don't create false expectations by doing something too much for your engagement. Story of the day.
Okay.
Thank you.
I got you. Well done. The NFL season is rolling along and the contenders are separating from the pack. The one thing that hasn't changed this season, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, is the #1 place to bet touchdowns.
We don't care how they get them. We want to bet on touchdowns, and DraftKings is the best place to do it. Here's a reason for new customers to do a touchdown dance of their own. Bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins.
Speaking of winning, Fitz, I'm going to take the Broncos in the over tonight.
Well, I'm going to go with the Jerry Jeudy parlay special. I've got Jerry Jeudy over on 4.5 catches. I've got him over 80 yards, and I have him scoring a touchdown.
Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code Fitz and Whit.
That's code Fitz and Whit for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. What else? Even Eagles Ravens. I know you were excited about this game. I think everybody was, but seemed like a bit of a heavyweight battle today, huh?
I don't know if there's two bigger lines on both sides. I mean, those two teams right there. I mean, that is a heavyweight fight right there, right? I mean, you talk about the Eagles offensive line, the Ravens D line, even the Ravens offensive line and the Eagles D line. I mean, that's what you want. You want a trench battle. That's the kind of game every coach that coaches D line or O line is watching, because those are some of the best doing it. But you look at that game, and I thought to me, man, this is a great opportunity to kind of see, all right, the Eagles have been on this roll since the bye week, and they've been able to overpower some teams, but probably some teams that you wouldn't say that was really their strong suit and their identity. To go against the Ravens and show it again, like, this is our identity. This is who we're going to be. We're going to just keep plowing away defensively, offensively. We're going to play physical style of football. Fitz, I'm starting to become a Nick Sirianni guy. I mean, hey, listen.
Yeah, you are.
It's working. Yeah, I'm starting to believe. Listen, one, he shaved his head. So, anybody that gets close to being bald, we're kind of friends already. But he's now 44-19 during his time as the Eagles head coach. I mean, he has the #1 winning percentage of all active NFL head coaches.
He just wins, baby. He
He
just
just
wins.
wins. So, I mean, to me, you think about this, like you think about Philly's game plan, you think about how they executed it. Saquon Barkley continues to just keep stacking on what is an MVP season. You know, he tied Adrian Peterson in touchdowns today from Adrian Peterson's year that he won the MVP. He's right there with him in yards per game, yards per carry, all those things. Man, he's got a chance to me, like really, truly, to be the MVP of this league. I think when you look at this game, I thought it told me more about the Eagles than I think really what I do about the Ravens. The Ravens kind of are what the Ravens are to me. And the Eagles, I wanted to see them play against a Lamar Jackson type offense. And to me, I now say what I said. You didn't want to do this last week. I tried to tell you that we needed to pick who's going to be in the end. I'm going to tell you again, the Lions and the Eagles are going to be there at the end. And right now, as it stands, I'm leaning towards thinking that the Eagles are going to be representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. I know it's a big statement.
We got a chance. See, we got a chance to watch the Lions this week, right?
That's right. So I want to see this game, and then I'm ready.
Okay, and I love the Packers, so I want to see this game too because it's going to be a great game. But I'll say the thing that Philly does so well on defense and that they've been doing so well since the bye with Vic Fangio, bend but don't break, but they make you earn everything, and you have to be consistent. And Baltimore, and Lamar, they just weren't consistent enough today. They couldn't string those plays together. And then the thing that you mentioned with Philly, since their bye week early on when they're sitting at 2-2, they found their identity, which is run the ball with Saquon Barkley. This offense goes through him. And so in this game, they get down not 10-0, Justin Tucker, but 9-0. And they stuck to it. They stuck to the game plan. They didn't panic. They didn't start throwing the ball all over the yard. They know who they are. They want to live in that. Their defense is playing well enough that they can live in that mode. And it's been a really lethal combination for them. 8-0 since the bye, which is crazy. The one other thing that just scares me about the Ravens, and their pass defense has been atrocious all year.
Right.
And it just, some of it's mind-boggling because it's the biggest switch they made was obviously the defensive coordinator with McDonald going to Seattle and Zach Orr stepping in, but they don't have a lot of different players on defense, so it's kind of strange. But they haven't won a game this year when they've scored less than 28 points. That sticks out to me. So if this is not the Ravens of old, if they're going to make noise in the playoffs, it's going to be through Derrick Henry and it's going to be through Lamar. And Lamar's got to play better than he has the last few weeks.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's concerning to me too because originally this defense throughout the season has really been all right. In the secondary, they're giving up a lot of yards and points and everything else. But up front, stopping the run, they had been one of the best groups in the league, and even the explosive run. And then now over the last few weeks, even Pittsburgh ran the ball on them some. They've started to kind of get leaky against the run game. And I don't know if that's to try to protect the pass game some. They're not doing as much there or what. But now you're starting to see people are just moving the football and scoring points on them. And I think that puts a lot of pressure on Lamar and this Ravens offense if they can't stop people defensively. But this was a good one. I mean, it was a great fight. It was a big battle. I mean, it definitely what you would consider a heavyweight title fight. Against two teams in two different conferences kind of gives us a little bit of a measuring scale of where both of them are at.
Yeah, for sure.
But speaking of that, Fitz, speaking of heavyweight fights, college football rivalry week this weekend. It got out of hand, buddy.
Boo.
I mean, listen, we saw today, all right, Trevor Lawrence and the Texans. Obviously, something you don't want to see happen, but you do want to see Evan Ingram. Shout out to him, much respect to his reaction, defend your quarterback. That turned into a scuffle you expect, right?
Yeah,
That's
Brandon
a play
Sheriff,
where guys
shout out Brandon Sheriff too.
Yeah, that you're defending your quarterback, right? And that's a scuffle and it's over. But this flag planting stuff, I mean, I'm over it. I mean, where do you stand on all this?
I'm so done. I mean, how many teams we saw? The Michigan, Ohio State was the big one, right? And we saw Arkansas and Missouri and Auburn and Alabama. And it's played out. It's too much. Florida State. I think there's a solution to it. The solution is not, which happened, we're going to fine Ohio State $100,000 and fine Michigan $100,000. Do you think the players care about that?
Zero.
Do you think that's going to deter them from next year doing the same exact thing? No. I actually, and I think I'm in the minority here, but I actually kind of like the pepper spray technique. We're going to tell you before the game starts if there are shenanigans. We will pepper spray you. We're just going to tell you right now. We're giving you warning. If there are shenanigans after the game, you will be pepper sprayed. And let's see how that works.
I think that would be effective, Fitz. I really do. But I loved hearing Billy Napier even like own up and say, hey, man, this is not who we want to be, not how our players are taught. I fully accept responsibility. That's got to get fixed. I mean, you saw what I just want to make sure we're not doing in college football, right, is creating a mentality that what we want guys to do is disrespect the other side. Like, I just think that's the coolest part about pro football. And I think why you saw the reaction in the Texans-Jaguars game today is that there's always, no matter how hard we compete, no matter how bad I want to win a game, there's always some mutual level of respect for my opponent. And man to man, how we will always treat each other. We will compete like crazy on the football field, but there will always be a level of respect that we will keep amongst each other. And you saw it in the Nebraska-Iowa game, the no handshake move at midfield. Like, what is that? That's lame.
Cheesy.
All right? How many cheesy movies do we have to watch of the bully? Like, don't be the bully team.
Yeah.
Like, who are you? And so that kind of stuff, I mean, we saw guys punching people in the face, on the field, all of that mess. And then the plant flagging to me is like, the flag planting, to me, that's like trying to disrespect the other team. And so I just think it's all silly. It's foolish. And like, let's compete, be mad, have a big rivalry, no friends. I get it. But let's have a level of respect that the game and the integrity of football is.
Yes. Oh, and I have a way to do that as well.
Do you have it? What do you got for me?
Let's don't make it physical.
Did you have a lot of brawls at Harvard or no?
So instead of making it physical, let's use our minds. Okay. And this one actually,
I'm not doing a Rubik's Cube at midfield, Fitz.
But I'm taking you back to 2004, my senior year, Harvard, Yale, at Harvard. And this happened, we were at the butt of this joke, but it's still wonderful. So Yale, some students from Yale got up very early in the morning, and they put either white or crimson signs all throughout Harvard Stadium. And as the fans came in and the parents piled into the stadium, everybody had their either white or red, white or crimson card. And at some point, I think in the second quarter of the game, there was a fake Harvard Spirit Squad that was Yale students that came over to the Harvard section, and they said, okay, it's time, raise your signs. And so they all raised their signs, and we're like, this is the coolest thing ever. This is a real college football game. We've got 33,000 people in here screaming fans. Look at our fans over here. They're holding up signs. And all the signs, if you saw it from the Yale side, on the other side, you could very clearly see that it spells out, we suck.
Oh, my God.
Now, that is a rivalry.
That's epic.
That I want to be a part of. It was so epic. These people had been planning it for years, and they got us. Look, Yale, you got us. I get it.
That's pretty good.
No flag planting. It was sign planting. No physical altercations. Like, we're all good.
Sign plant, don't flag plant. I got it.
Okay. I want to talk about this. I know this whole fighting thing got us to who would we want to get in a bar fight with, picking former teammates of ours, which then led to, this. You know what? Let's just take the defensive guys that we've played with, and let's make a starting defense that we would want to take into a bar fight. What I want you to do for the defensive linemen, we chose guys that one of us or both of us had played with. When I looked at the D linemen, we ended up determining we're going to go with the 4-3 defense. We kind of thought we should do a 6-1, but that was cheating. So we're going to take it back to a 4-3.
A lot of D linemen, scrappy guys too. Just big guys.
But we got some nasty folks. When I look at D linemen, I look at who intimidated me. When you look at them, I know that you battled with a bunch of these guys in practice or even playing against them over the years. But let's start breaking down our D line. Who are our top 4 D linemen that we're going to take into the bar fight with us, Whit?
Well, I think it's like anything else. You need to assemble a team. We want a little mixture of some characteristics we want in these guys. So you definitely want the guys who, like, even if somebody broke a beer bottle over their head, they'd probably laugh and lick the blood that's dripping down their forehead.
Yeah.
So I thought Justin Smith, who is an absolute legend that I got to play with in Cincinnati, and then obviously went on to the 49ers and had an amazing career. That's one bad dude from Missouri. I think he has a Budweiser tattoo on his bicep. He is a bad man. Blue jeans and cowboy boots. Good old boy Justin Smith. He's a good one. And then I also threw in there Kyle Williams, who I know you played with. I played with him in college.
See, hold on now. We debated this, and my only thing, I love Kyle to death. My only thing about Kyle was those stubby little arms. Like, I just didn't know. That was the one thing we talked about.
He's a redhead.
There were some things that outweighed the stubby arms for Kyle.
He's a redhead from the middle of nowhere in Calhoun, Ruston, somewhere out there. I don't know where. I never gave him Sibley, I think is actually the name of it. But he, I always just give him crap when we were in high school. I'd tell him he lived out in the boondocks, even though we lived about 3 minutes from each other. But he lived out in the middle of nowhere. I didn't. I'd always say, Kyle, you live where there's no fences. That's the difference in our two areas. My area has a fence, yours doesn't. But K-Dub, that's a bad man. Nobody wants a piece of Kyle. I'm not sure anybody could hurt him. That's the problem. Then the other two, I thought you also need those guys that you go, I'm not sure if anybody would even swing on them because they would like look at you and be like, no, I'm not touching that dude. James Harrison, who I got to be a teammates with for 1 year. I was very lucky that I got to have 1 year with him in Cincinnati so I could put him on our list because I don't know if there's anybody messing with Debo. James Harrison's one of the scariest guys I've ever played in my life. I don't know if he ever had an emotion when you played against him. It was like going against some Halloween character because he was a scary individual. The visor. I know you've been scared by it before.
I'll say this because there are three dudes that really scared me. James was one of them. And I haven't met him, but obviously you played with him. So you got to see that he's scary all the time. And then the other two guys were Fletcher Cox, but ever since he wore that blouse, I don't know. He's fallen down a little bit.
Lost some of the steam for you.
And then Chris Jones, who's so intimidating on the field, but we had him on the set. He was a
sweetheart.
He's an absolute sweetheart. He was a great dude, but so soft-spoken and mild-mannered. And so James is not that way. So that is why James is on this list.
James is not that way. And the last guy, we got to put the Incredible Hulk on our list. Between James Harrison and AD, one of them has got to be a superhero. I know that much because I've been around both of them. The way they can lift, the power, the things they were able to do. Aaron Donald is on any list that has anything to do with anything. Okay, because Aaron Donald could do it all. He's fast, he's powerful, he's explosive, he's mean. He did all those drills with the knives. I don't know if you've ever seen those videos. I don't know who's touching AD and James. We actually maybe could just send James and AD in there and leave the other 9 guys outside, and we'd be all right. But that's the D-line. Kyle Williams, Justin Smith, James Harrison, and Aaron Donald.
Yeah, and I got our backers. So for linebacker, this one was tough too because we played with a lot of bad mofos. I went with Sean Merriman. Sean Merriman's a first off the bus guy. He's an MMA guy. He's classically trained. He's got a lot of psycho in him, and you're going to see a common theme here with these backers. The second guy who's an absolute psychopath.
I was interested in this one.
I played with him in Houston, Brian Cushing. He has that, that little switch that he can flip. Really nice, funny guy. But when push comes to shove, I'm picturing him walking into the bar, grabbing a pool cue, breaking it over his forehead, blood dripping down, him licking it, him barking like a dog, foaming out the mouth, just holding the 2 broken pool cues, stabbing people with them. He's an absolute psychopath. And I would love to have him on my team. And then the third guy that you played with, Vontez Burfict, just seems like a pretty good fit for a bar fight.
Listen, Tez was a mean sucker. We all know that. He's got some epic hits in games. Sometimes they were penalized, sometimes they weren't. But Vontez kind of seems like the guy you would definitely want on your team in a bar fight because, listen, he's going to take that one-hitter quitter on somebody, no question. Tez would be a good one. He's a good crazy one. All the backers, they all got that common theme. They're all psychos. But I also thought going into the DBs, Fitz.
This one's hard. DBs are tough.
It is, but I played with some pretty epic ones. Jalen Ramsey, This dude's physical, freak, nasty. We've seen the hits, and his ability to play with physicality at the corner position is pretty rare, and he's obviously a very big corner. He was one, Jalen loves to talk. He's got a little nasty streak to him, so I love Jalen in that scenario. And then my guy, Adam Jones, I've
that's a no-brainer. That's a
no-brainer.
I don't even know if you need to explain that one. Yeah.
Adam's a bad man, and I always got a ton of respect for him, man. We were really close in Cincinnati, and Adam's a bad man, that's for sure. So those are definitely our two corners. I feel really good about those. And I'm kind of cheating here. I will say this is a little bit of a fudge, but since I played with him in college, I think it still counts. On the safeties, I added my college teammate because you do need the off the bus guys. Like I said, you need a couple guys that people go, I don't know if I want to walk over there and fight those guys. LaRon Landry, those arms, those pythons would scare anybody off. And,
do you think he's ever been in a bar fight, or you think he's got some
experience?
It doesn't matter.
With those arms, I doubt many people have swung on him.
Yeah. And then the last safety, I'm going to throw on the list Kareem Jackson. Kareem's got some crazy in him as well. And then if you just look back to his last season in Denver, he forfeited $800,000 in suspensions, and he paid about $90,000 in fines. That's the recklessness we need in this fight. He's probably the one that's jumping in first. 11. I do too. And here's the deal. We got an honorable mention. We got two guys waiting outside in the parking lot just in case for reinforcements. I think we throw J.J. Watt and Vita Vea waiting outside ready to go.
There's no doubt. I kind of like 6'1" now that you throw those two names in there. But I don't know. We'll have to figure out what our defensive philosophy is later. But, listen, that was fun. I think I feel good about our 11. But we got to talk about this week, Fitz. We got a big one coming up. Detroit Lions, Green Bay Packers in Detroit. I'm looking forward to Detroit. We hadn't been there yet since you and I have been working together with Amazon on Thursday Night Football. So I'm looking forward to Detroit, seeing that stadium, that energy. I'm sure we're going to hear some Goff chants. They're going to be screaming Goff. And
the underdog, Jared Goff,
the underdog. 9-3 Packers taking on the 11-1 Lions. Lions have won 10 straight. They beat the Packers last time they played. Now, if you remember that game, the Packers outgained them, 400 something yards to 260, I think it was. Had 4 trips in the red zone where I think only one of them they scored a touchdown. Had an interception for a touchdown in the game. Had a bunch of penalties, made a bunch of mistakes, but really, could have made that much more of a game. I'm interested because I kind of read some of the articles after Thursday, and the first thing these Packers started talking about is like, we're a different team.
Physical.
And they've got this one circled. And so I'm excited to see this one. I think it's going to be a really special football game.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to see this atmosphere because I've got a couple roommates from college that are Detroit guys. We've got a couple guys with Amazon that are Detroit guys. So how passionate they are, this fan base, and now how excited they are the last few years because of how well they're playing. I just think this is going to be a place that's on fire. They're going to have so much energy, but they have been decimated. Their front seven, just injury after injury, and they keep overcoming it. And the thing that I love most about Detroit is they can win in a lot of different ways. I think that's really important. They've shown it throughout the season, and I think they'll continue to show it throughout the playoffs. I think there's only 2 teams that can beat them in the NFC, and it's the Eagles, who you talked about, and Green Bay. But I do think that Green Bay has to prove it, and they have to prove it to themselves that they can do it. Because it just feels like there's a little bit of big brother syndrome right now between Detroit and Green Bay. But 2 teams that have been great all year long at turning the ball over, at playing defense, and at running the football, which are great things to be able to put together when you get to the playoffs. It's going to come down to quarterback play. Jared Goff, as consistent as it gets in the league right now. And Jordan Love, we've seen kind of the highs and lows of Jordan, but when he hits those highs, they are so good. He's just got to limit kind of the turnovers and some of the lows that he's had this season. But this is going to be a great matchup, and I think that Green Bay can beat these guys. I'm not going to tell you.
Just go ahead and say it if you want to.
We got to wait for our show. We got to wait for Thursday. I'm
going to make a note so I can. Okay.
Yeah, I can't put it all out there. You're going to have to tune into the show on Thursday night, but I can't wait for this game. thank you, NFL, because I think we have the game of the week again in the NFL with these two, two divisional teams going head to head against each other. So looking forward to that. But that does it for this episode of Fitz and Whit, a Wave Sports and Entertainment original. Subscribe on YouTube, follow wherever you get your podcast, like and comment, and follow us on socials. We will see you next Monday.
Peace.
Toodaloo.